My name's Matt, and I will be talking to Mohamed Gamal about architectural decision making and transition company cultures.
Hey, Mohammed. Good morning. Happy to have you here.
Hey, Matt. Good afternoon. Happy to have you as well.
Good afternoon. You're right. You're right. It's 2 p.m. We are in Europe, and it's Friday, so it's almost a weekend. So it's like a good point to start the weekend or interview.
Right.
And Mohammed, I'm not especially passionate about the intros. I think like when people know you, they will know you from the description. But what is interesting, and I would love to start right away with the question. You work for a SumUP, pretty like successful fintech. Recently, you got like quite a big round. So I hope you have a lot of money to spend on technology in your department.
Everybody hopes so, yeah.
And so we recently talked. It was really interesting in what apartment you work because you work in a platform department. So maybe could you tell a few words about it and what do you do there?
Yeah, of course. So the platform team by nature is more of foundation team. So you need, if you work in tribalized world, which is Spotify model, we can go through later. When the team gets much bigger, you in the end need one team that's responsible for the architecture vision, the architectural or engineering direction you are going to. So it should kind of oversee all the products and how products work together and be the center of this. So actually, the platform team doesn't own feature by nature. The platform team owns tooling, services to help engineers to deliver better products, more stable products, observability, for example, to always have track over the data, over the crashes, everything. So it's more again of foundation team that have simply architecture vision and providing tools to engineers to help and support them through their engineering process, the coding, and so on. So yeah, in few words, that's what it means. And the platform tribe, it's still a tribe as every other department. It has different teams. So the team I work for is called the mobile platform. So we are more dedicated or only dedicated for the mobile. We don't own any features that you can see as a user in the end, but we own again the foundation, how the products work together, how things should align, how to add a new library, new dependency, how it's gonna affect the other dependencies, to have libraries to provide engineers with libraries for observability, for example, as I mentioned, also being the DevOps for the mobile. So we own the CI and CD and all of these processes, the release management with the Play Store and Apple Store and so on. So more or less, that's what we do. It depends, of course, on everybody's role, but in the end, we are kind of, I'd say, the lubricant between the tribes. So yeah.
Well, thanks for that. I think it's a clever solution, but I'm just wondering what kind of typical challenges on or pain points do you have? Like because you have a huge impact on the whole organization, on the whole application. But what are the typical challenges and pain points?
Yeah. So usually the challenge is that by time people feel, I mean, for every platform team, I don't mean necessarily in my case, but by time people might feel that they don't really have full responsibility or ownership over what they are shipping and how it impacts other things. Because with teams, usually they focus on their own product to deliver their own product in the best way, but they don't see how it affects the others. Having platform team also helps in this because you still know if I broke something, the platform team is gonna know about it, so they are gonna take care of it. So I think this kind of minimize a little bit the responsibility of seeing the big picture. So that's the biggest challenge for us is to not do that. So we want to solve things, we want everything to be integrated, well integrated, but on the other side, we want also teams to feel responsible for what they do and see the big picture. So I'd say, in my opinion, that's the biggest challenge you have, is that you need to do both together.
And who is your partner in crime? With who you usually work and you consult your decisions?
Yeah, that's a very tough question, I'd say. Basically, our team is really, really self-driven. So we never make individual decisions, for example. Everything comes through documents. We challenge each other a lot. We are very, very honest together. We don't have this political thing like, yeah, okay, and then we change things. No, we are very challenging peeps. So I'd say all, but the closest one, of course, because I'm more into Android, there is Tiago. Now he is engineering manager of our squad. So we work together all the time. Also because we firefight a lot. So there is something happening in release and so on. We keep passing things to each other very freely. So I would say, yeah, if it's a partner of crime, it's him. So, and for this reason, we really firefight a lot.
And why do you firefight a lot? Why is it so?
Yeah, because again, we oversee how everything works together. So firefighting, it's not necessarily something about the app performance in production. This rarely happens, but it's more of how things are integrated and what's the direction teams are going to. For example, only talking about Android team, it's more than 40, 45 engineers. Same for iOS. So all of these engineers don't know that others are working maybe on the same thing or maybe something that will conflict. So that's when you go advice, sometimes you need to kind of, be very patient, really try to coach people that they need to learn about how everything is connected and work together. This I still call firefighting because when you add, for example, new dependency to your project, it might break everything. But you don't know that because you want to ship your things, you test it works, but you don't see what's happening behind the scene. And that happens a lot. So overseeing this, we need to pass problems to each other and okay, Tiago, you are tackling this. Okay, no, I'm tackling this now and so on. So that's why I choose.
And you mentioned the tribes and squads, so like in a Spotify kind of manner. So could you tell me more about it? How does it work for you? Are there any downside of that kind of approach? Because this is a really popular model, right?
It is. I mean, I wouldn't understand a company with 100 employees size applying this, to be honest, like because it doesn't make sense. So I also worked in different styles, I would say, not only the Spotify model. But when some company like SumUP, I think we are more than 3.5 K employees. So it makes more sense. So what exactly it does is that it offers you good team structure. It's autonomous approach, how to scale the agile and so on. So basically you have tribe, each tribe is responsible for its domain. In big companies, this domain might be a small company inside the company. Yeah. And then this tribe has its own teams. So also the responsibility is shared across teams. And the beauty of Spotify model is that it doesn't force all teams to work using the same methodology. So every team is autonomous. They can work as they like. In the end, they contribute to the big vision, but on their own way. So it's not forced. And then because also all of these teams are kind of cross functional teams, so you also need to have kind of chapters. So every team has back-end engineers, front-end engineers, mobile, blah, blah, blah. Then you have chapters for these domains. So for example, you have mobile chapter, inside it there is Android chapter, iOS chapter, and so on. So you always also get everybody together, sharing knowledge and so on. And it has many other details. Let's not, I think there are lots of people can talk about this way better than me. So the downside, in my opinion, is prioritization, because in the end, each entity, which is tribe in this case, has its own priorities. So the alignment becomes a problem sometimes. You need always to be aligned, and I think it's the hardest mission ever, to be aligned on the vision, to be aligned on the priorities of your team against the priorities of other teams. So I think this is the biggest challenge. So you need always to work on this, because I think this is the biggest deal in my opinion. So yeah, I think also maintaining a shared vision is kind of problematic, because again, like with different domains, it's very hard to come up with a shared vision for all together. So this also is a little bit challenging, I'd say. Also, hiring, for example, is a challenge, because when it comes to this, and each tribe is very big enough, they have their own, let's say, hiring process or standards. So you also need to work on this kind of standardizing the hiring process across all tribes, not only each tribe is free to do whatever they want, because in the end you care of the quality. All engineers or all employees should be with the same quality, with the same titles in all tribes. So this is also a challenge. The last thing, in my opinion, is the resource allocation or talent distribution, what I mean. So some tribes are overstuffed, they have enough people, other tribes no. But with this tribalized world, it's very hard to share the resources, because sharing the resources is kind of changing the entity you work for. It's not that easy that you just in your tribe need mobile engineer, another tribe has maybe two more than they need. No, you cannot share this easily. So this is also something to work on. But once you take care of these things, once you already know the downsides and you work on them, I think it's, in my opinion, the perfect setup.
Thank you for that. Like, really interesting. I haven't so for the first time I'm hearing the downsides of the working in tribes. I heard a lot of like advantages, and I haven't heard about this, the hiring process and like moving people from one tribe to another, and that this is so difficult. So I think this is valuable knowledge. And recently when we talk about a few technical concepts. So. And the one that stuck in my mind was the discussion about the Polyrepo versus Monorepo.
Yeah.
So if you still remembered our conversation, maybe you can elaborate on that, because this was.
Yeah. So, like, for example, talking about the backend, what is the biggest architecture trend now is more of microservices. Yeah. So each service is standalone. It's still connected somehow, but standalone. So in mobile, that's different. You cannot really apply this, because in the end, you ship one app. It's one product that you ship, you upload to the Play Store, everything together. It cannot be cut into pieces. Architectural-wise, yes, but delivery-wise, no. So most of the mobile development goes through the Monorepo pattern, which is everything in one place, everything in one GitHub repo. Everybody contributes to the same thing. And in the end, everything is shipped together. The Polyrepo is a bit different. It's more like microservices, but it's more like microservices. So you can't cut, for example, you have domain, SumUP app, for example, it has bank domain, it has checkout domain, it has big domains. You can't cut these domains into SDKs. And each SDK is separate repository and has its own version. And in the end, these things integrate together. So in the end, in my opinion, both of them work very well, but both of them have lots of downsides. So the Monorepo, it gives the engineers the opportunity to see everything, because they have open pull requests, for example, for every change of the code, and it's all in one place. So that's a very good thing. But the downside is it also gets overwhelming. It increases the build time so much, because and this is the most painful thing you will hear from any mobile dev, especially Android dev, especially in big company, the build time, and it takes me forever to build the code. So this is also one of the downsides of the Monorepo, because you need to build everything together. The Polyrepo is a bit challenging, because also you need to align the versions together, how all of these SDKs work together. So that's the challenging part. But in the end, it's much faster. You are free to do whatever you want in your repo. You are free to test the way you want. You are free to do whatever. And then you ship new version, maybe weekly, and you put it in the app, integrated, done, cool. It comes with downside. Again, another downside is with testing. It's because you don't test the integration all the time. So, both of them are good, my personal opinion is to go through Polyrepo and try to minimize the side effects of it. There are many ways to do that, and that's how I see it. But in the end, both of them work. The most important thing to keep maintaining, and this is the biggest deal in software engineering in general, because anyway, whatever you do is legacy. It's gonna be legacy very soon. So you need to make it a fine legacy, not not the legacy that people will suffer in 5 years. Yeah.
And you tackle the trends in software development, like the microservices, right? Everybody's going this way. And another question that I wanted to ask you to give you a bit of a background. So this was with something that I was struggling before, like running the company. So like my company that I'm running, the Brainhub, we are like a JavaScript dev shop, right? And when we started it, like I think it was like 8 or 9 years ago, the JavaScript was growing like crazy. So like each week, each day, you have like a new framework, new library, and the developers, especially the developers, short after studies, this is their first job, or they are just starting, they are not so experienced. They just, throwing with you like with all those libraries, frameworks, that we should go with this way, we should go this way, and you have like plenty of those. So I'm just wondering, how do you approach saying no to new things and keeping developers happy at the same time?
Yeah. I would say it's a muscle you train. Because, yeah, in the beginning, especially when I joined Platform, because this is the teams that usually say no, but for a reason always. So hopefully people understand that it's for a reason. So, yeah, in the beginning, I used to say like, okay, maybe that doesn't work. Okay. But maybe without giving enough context. After that, time by time, you learn how people would get more interested or how they will buy in your idea. When you share context, when you share, yeah, you know what? This, they don't work together. Like something feels very trivial, updating library version, not even adding new library, just updating the dependency version. It might break everything easily, because in the end, there are transitive dependencies, and if every dependency has other dependencies with different versions. Whenever you update one version, it might break everything. I think now, by time, also most of engineers now understand this. So now, to be honest, it's not hard to say no, because sometimes even before going and saying no, I see other people already did this and they already understand. And to be honest, this is the best thing here, that I think the people from the past, before even me coming here, they developed this culture that people now understand and have kind of shared knowledge about the app or about our products, the products we ship. Also, there is something that makes things easier, that you always have something called dependency trees that mentions all the versions and everything together. So whenever you open a pull request for some changes, you see how all the versions changed, and it's very easy for you, very visible to understand the impact of what you have done. The problem only happens when maybe new engineers join, so it should be a part of the onboarding, that they need to understand that whatever they do, the impact is very high. But in the end, they really accept it in very friendly way, and it's very fine. So even we keep challenging each other, like, okay, maybe it becomes a negotiation, or kind of like, okay, I want to update to version 5, but yeah, we have version 3. Okay, what about updating to version 4? Would it work? Like, it's like trading. So yeah, that's exactly what I mean. It's a muscle you train. So
and let's talk a bit more about the technical aspects. I heard once from the CTO from one CTO that he mentioned that architecture decisions should be the last one to make, like as late as possible, right? Because it has a huge impact and it stays with you for a longer time. So I'm just wondering, in your case, because you already mentioned the legacy, right? At some point, everything will be the legacy. But do you have any actionable tips how to plan properly the architecture, like how to do it for other leaders, what they should avoid maybe, or what are the common mistakes in this area?
Yeah. So to be fair, it's impossible, as you said, it's impossible to avoid legacy. This is going to happen. This happened in the past, happening today. It's going to happen. We are building legacy code for future. So I think the word legacy is kind of misused because legacy itself is not a bad thing. It's fine. If it's working perfectly, it's fine. There are new trends that make things work easier, but that doesn't mean that the old ones weren't bad. So I always don't take legacy word as a bad thing. But you need to reduce the bad impact of the legacy in future. To be honest, with doing this, it should be easy. Anybody who studies software engineering, it should be easy, but it's not as easy as it sounds because in the end, you need to ship things. And this is the main goal. We are a product company. Most of the companies are product companies, and you need to ship. So usually you make your decisions based on the timeline you have and so on. Like there is always a fun joke that, okay, I will fix this later. I will just deliver this and fix this later. This fix this later will never happen. So he's just like, yeah, okay, let's deliver and we will optimize. But I never seen somebody who revisited the codes they have done just to optimize. After this, it doesn't happen. So I think, in my opinion, everybody, including myself, it's also a reminder for myself. Just follow the very basic solid principles. When you follow principles, when you follow clean architecture, when you keep this in mind all the time, you will not have bad impact of whatever you write now because it's always open for change. It's always scalable and so on. So when you keep this in mind, I think it works and that's enough. So that's how I take it. You need also to learn how to plan the architecture. Of course, as you said, the architecture is not the first thing you think about. So you need to learn about the business, how the business will be shaped in 2-3 years. It will always change. You can learn about it, then tomorrow it will change, of course. But you build the architecture based on the business needs. Because maybe in the end, you don't need to have fancy setup. Maybe the simple setup will work better for you. Because whenever also you try to build fancy things that's more complicated than needed, that will end up with bad legacy. Because later, why all of that and we don't need it? You know what I mean? So yeah, in summary, I don't think legacy is bad, but we need to make sure as much as we can that it's not gonna be bad. It's gonna be a legacy, yes, it will be. So I don't know if this answered your question, so please correct me.
More or less. I cannot correct. I'm not well, educated enough like in this area. So no, I think that's it's a good answer. And Mohammed, I wanted to ask you like a tough question because like everybody of each of us, we learn from like really hard things at work. So I'm just wondering, what was the hardest thing or situation that you have experienced in your career in tech, and what you have learned from that?
I think the biggest step, the hardest for me, and it took lots of time to adapt, is moving from the software house culture and environment and to the product company. So software house is very different with very different mentality. You need to, you don't care a lot about the future of this product. It's not your product in the end. I used to work for a software house for 5-6 years. I worked on 9 different projects in these 5-6 years. It's very different mentality. It's very different mentality. All of what you want is to ship. All of what you want is to ship without crashes, because this is a problem for the client. And also you need to deal with the client. You need to understand the requirements and so on. You are in the end, you are doing everything. I learned a lot from there. But moving to product, that's totally different world. Things are not the same. You need to understand very well what the product is because it's your product. You really care about the product because in the end, you are the one who is responsible for it. You are the one who is responsible for testing it. You are the one who is responsible for the feedback. In software house, it's the opposite because the client in the end will test and will come to you with the feedback. It's very different mindset. So to adapt to the new mindset, it took me a while. It really took me a while. But in the end, after, I don't know, 4 years now, maybe a little bit more than 4 years working for only product companies. I think now everything together makes sense, but only after 4 years. Now it's easy, of course. Now I kind of connected, like, okay, back then the client to me was the real client. Now the client to me is the stakeholder. But we both have the same vision because we both work on the same product. We both care about the same thing. That's the only difference for me now. But back then, of course, it was horrible. It was very hard.
What are your biggest challenges in 2024?
Okay. Technical-wise, the unification maybe of our products, because we have multiple products, and now there are some merges, or some product needs some features from the other, and so on. So this unification thing and sharing is a big one, is really a big one. Also, KMP, for example, if you know, it's Kotlin multi-platform. It's new. It's a new good trend. It's not just a new trend. In my opinion, it's a new good trend. So introducing it to SumUP and relying on it for big features is also a big challenge for us. And there is always a big challenge we always have every year. So maybe if you asked me in 5 years, I would always say the same. It's about the build process of the projects. So how the project is being built and so on. We always try to improve this, but we will always also try to improve this. It will never stop. It will always have issues. So those are, I think, the main three things.
Thanks for sharing. And the last question that I wanted to ask, and ask all of my guests, I wonder, can you recommend any books, resources, conferences, podcasts, or something like those that were particularly helpful to you as a tech leader, that helped you to shape you?
Yeah, of course. So I would start first with podcasts. There is a very nice one called Better Tech Leadership.
Thanks for that. I will use it on the website.
Otherwise, for other podcasts, there is the Prime Time is, of course, good as well. I don't, to be honest, listen to many podcasts. I know about yours, like before we contacted each other from Jan. So that's why I became interested. I wanted to hear. I like the talk and so on. So I wanted to listen to more interviews. The Prime Time is also great, but those are the only two. For books, for bigger vision about software engineering and company and how to build lean software and DevOps and so on, I like Accelerate book. It's very highly recommended. It's called Accelerate, the sign of lean software and DevOps. There is one book that I think it's one of the top I have ever read, 5 Dysfunctions of a Team. I really love this book so much. I love it. I love the story. I love how it's written. It's really very inspiring, in my opinion, because you always feel these values, but you don't know that it's a common thing across all teams. It's very, very important, in my opinion, to be read for anybody who want to step up to learn more about the team and how teamwork and how to build better team. Unfortunately, there are not lots of books for staff engineering. There are lots of books for engineering management track. So that's why the staff engineer book is called the Staff Engineer's Path, because I think it's one of the first ones, and the other one is just called Staff Engineer. So it's not easy. Those were also important to learn from other aspects, how staff engineer or staff plus staff principal and so on, how it works in other companies, in big companies and so on. What does it mean? What are the different tracks for being staff, different styles of being staff and so on. So it was very, very helpful to me. So yeah, I think those are on top of my mind.
Great. Thank you very much, Mohamed. This was my last question. You gave a great answer, so thanks for that. And I really appreciate your time and wish you a great weekend.
You too. Enjoy.
Thank you.
Follow Matt on LinkedIn and subscribe to the Better Tech Leadership newsletter.